All right, hey guys, this is Mr. Boucher, and wanted to say hey and hopefully not give you flashbacks to Christian living the end of the year last year, but I really did want to give you some explanation on the end of the year assignments um, for the celebration of discipline stuff. There's actually 4 end of the year assignments, not to freak you out or anything, but there are 4, two basic assignments with 2 parts each, and I wanted to explain that to you. Part of it is due this Friday, and that gets us started, and then the rest is due after Christmas, and I'll show you some due dates on that. So I'm going to explain the assignments, the one that I gave you for Friday, and then the end result of that, and then I want to explain the next one, and I'll show you the calendar, just because I don't want you to be confused and stressed and not know how to wrap this up well. So the first one that I want to talk to you about is this one, and I'll share it with you, that you have due on Friday. And so it's called, the document, if you find it in Plus Portals, is called the wrap-up, Spiritual Disciplines Wrap-Up Assignment. But you can see it here. The part on the left side of the screen is the part that is due on Friday. And what I want you to do with that is go through the 11 of the 12 disciplines that we've discussed, and possibly even take a look at the 13th one, which we do right after break. And I want you to choose 3 of those that you're going to practice. And I'd like them to be 3 from each section, the internal, the external, and the corporate. I'd like to have you pick 1 from each of those sections, if at all possible. That way you get a broad spectrum. And what I want you to do on this page, the one on the left on the screen now, is I want you to name and summarize the disciplines. You can really cut that and paste it out of a paper if you want, but what you turn in on Friday will be the name of the discipline and a brief summary of the discipline that you're going to practice. Secondly, I want you to describe how you're going to practice that. It's not like, well, I'm going to figure out what food to fast and do that, but I want you to actually think through, okay, how is fasting or how is worship or whatever going to work out while you're starting on Thanksgiving break, but also going for a week or so after Thanksgiving. And then those are the 2 components. So really a paragraph or 2, it fits the best. Make sure you write them out into a full paragraph. But part of that second paragraph particularly is giving me specifics on what you're going to do. So don't make it super generalized, but it's got to fit the discipline. For the corporate disciplines, whether it's celebration or worship or guidance or confession, make sure that you're doing it in a corporate setting. For service, it's not you're dreaming up service opportunities, but you're serving. For studying, you got to be able to have something tangible that you're going to do. And I'll explain why in just a minute. So what you're going to turn in on Friday really is, and I want to make sure that I'm being consistent here, is a paragraph or 2. I say 3 paragraphs. I'm gonna take that back right now, officially, right here in the video, with however many minutes in, but at least 2 paragraphs, maybe even 3 if you're pretty verbose. But I want you to summarize the discipline and then tell me how you're going to practice that discipline, because you've got to be able to have a way to say, this is what I succeeded at, this is what I didn't succeed at, and it's got to be pretty specific. So you're doing that for 3 different things. The assignment says write paragraphs. Here I'm highlighting it, 3 to 6 sentences. That's nice. And then right here it says a total of 9 paragraphs. But really what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say you have to do 3, or you have to do, do 2 paragraphs per discipline. Hope that made sense. Now, looking at the right-hand side, then this is the part that will be due after break. The first part that I just described is going to be due on Friday in class, this Friday, the 20th, that half day, the one day I'll be back in the month of November. Anyhow, the follow-up part of that will be due on the 11th, which is a week and some odd after we get back. And so you will have had a chance to finish the book on celebration. But on this one, what I want you to do is then to write out, and this one will be a longer one, more like the 9 paragraphs. But I want you to one more time summarize what the discipline is. And really, you can cut and paste this as long as it accomplishes what I'm asking for. Summarize the discipline that you've chosen to practice on the left-hand side of the screen, and then describe the discipline and give scriptural basis for it. Again, same thing that you did for the one due on Friday, and the same thing that you did maybe even in the original paper. You can cut and paste parts of that out of there as long as it blends into a paper. And then the practice, again, this goes back to what you're going to turn on Friday, but describe, I'm right here, describe how, oh, that's fun, describe how you choose to practice it, and describe when, describe what and when, as well. Yeah, it's fun to read things out loud. Anyhow, what and when, and then describe what went wrong and what didn't go wrong. So what was successful and what was a failure. And then for the rest of your life, basically, can you use this discipline? Can you see you going into college and even your life career after that, employing this discipline in your life? Because really one of the purposes of this class is to give you some spiritual disciplines that really fit your personality, that really will be useful for the rest of your life. For instance, one of the ones that I employ regularly, which I wish I would have been able to be there when we talked about study, but is the one of study. And that one I use on a regular basis, and maybe when I get back Friday we can discuss that. So for the paper that'll be due on the 11th of December, you're going to come back to me and say, into the class, and with a paper, with a paragraph at least of a summary describing the discipline, giving the support for it, a paragraph at least talking about how you practice the discipline, so a little bit's repetitive, but then how successful you were in that practice, and then a paragraph at least telling me how you can employ this in the rest of your life, or why that wouldn't work for the rest of your life. Make sure it's in MLA format, blah, 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 blah. So they're gonna be kind of 3 mini essays, or maybe we could even call them journal entries, and that might make CCU happier, I don't know. And so this is the first assignment. So I'm gonna call it a practicum, but Friday, the 20th, you're gonna tell us what you're gonna do. And then on the 11th, you're going to tell us, I think it's a Wednesday, but I'm not positive. You're going to tell us, here's how my practicum went. So you're going to get just shy of 3 weeks practicing it. So something you really do need to dive in right away, so that you can get the full benefit of it. I'd like to give you longer, but that's just not how things work out. So that is that, the practicum part of it, or what have you. The second one that I want to talk through, and this one is brand new, is the mentoring. And these are the end of, this is kind of the putting the disciplines into practice. Again, there are 2 parts of this, which are described in the left-hand side of the paper. But what I want you to do is to pick 3 disciplines, and they can be the 3 that you chose to do for your practicum that I just discussed. And what I want you to do is, again, you're going to do a lot of the same work over and over again, but I'm going to actually have you create a lesson for each of those 3 that you could teach to a middle school or high school student in about 20 to 30 minutes. And so the first part of this is the harder part, I think, and the second part, I think, is the easier, kind of depends on your personality. For the first part, which is right here on the right-hand side, this will be due on the 8th of December, which I'll show you all in a calendar in a minute. But I want you to take each discipline, so looking at this section right here, take each discipline and describe the discipline to your student, and then describe how they can implement that discipline. So summarize the discipline with the biblical and historical support, and how it impacts their spiritual life. And then I want you to describe to your student, whoever that is, then how they can implement that discipline. Then you need to have a worksheet that they fill in the blanks. And so it's going to be a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, where they fill in the blanks. and so that it'll follow along with your teaching. So as you describe the gift, and then you give us scriptural support and historical support and suggestions on how to carry it out, all that should be worked through on a student worksheet, kind of a fill in the blank thing, so that there's a place for them to write. And then finally, and you see that last row there is the teaching guide and the worksheet key. And so you need that's kind of two different things, but one of them is, here is the teaching guide for how I would say things. And it all can be worked in together. And here's how I will describe it. Here's how I will implement it. And then here is the answer key, which will be basically the student fill in the blank, but with the answers on it. So there'll be a blank sheet and there'll be this one and the teacher's guide. So we can hand it to anybody else in the class and they could take your teacher's guide theoretically, and they should be able to teach your discipline. So you're going to do this 3 times. I would recommend you do these for each of the disciplines that you practiced. That way you're already thinking about them and you're just taking that knowledge and that experience and turning it into a different way. So that part is due. That's the academic part. That's going to be due on the 8th. And then the last part is going to be due by the final day. And I honestly haven't looked at the schedule to see which day our final will be, but we'll be reading papers and doing things on that day. So there won't be a final per se, but I'm going to use that time to be wrapping up our assignments. So I'm going to say the 16th, because I'm kind of assuming that's our day of our final, but whatever the final day is, then I want you to have, or to come back with me with a verification that you taught your discipline. And so this rubric is pretty simple here. It's in the new CCU format. Don't be intimidated by it. But basically, you need to record the time. And so you time you start, the time you finish, and the date that you did it. And then in the next place is, what is the student's name and grade, and they need to sign the rubric right there. And then I need just a picture for this last column, a picture of the worksheet filled out by your student, and so that they can keep it, and maybe they'll actually have a benefit from that. And so hoping that they will, and so that you're going to leave that worksheet with them. And so that's the very last thing you're going to do. So as we go forward, then let me explain some things to you as well as far as due dates. Is then the month of November. Here we are today. I'm sitting here in my office at home, bored, not really, but yes. Well, you guys are where I want to be. And so you're doing that. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Tomorrow, then, my desire is that you would finish the discipline of submission. I'll be a little flexible with that, and I'll also copy Mr. Wowster on this video so he can see it, but I'll be a little flexible with that. You can do it tomorrow or Friday. I'd rather have you do it tomorrow so that you can give your full attention then to the 3 disciplines to practice assignment for Friday. When I get back, and so I probably should move this to Friday, I think you guys already finished the Monk and Merchant. When I get back, I'll give you the scripture verses and talk about wrapping that assignment up. Now that's November. So you're going to start practicing your disciplines on this day. Okay, that's what I'm hoping. I'm not going to be showing up at your house and asking you, but I would hope that you would do it. Here is then a calendar of December. Now we come back here on the 30th. And right after that, I like to have the last discipline, which would be celebration. This is my problem. Have that due. And then we'll assign a Proverbs for the next week or whatever. The second week back, then I'm going to have you turn in your Bible study, which is the second in the new assignment that I gave you. And then at the end of that week, you're going to tell me on the 11th, this is how my practicum went. So you're going to have, starting on the 20th, all the way through the end of November and 10 days into December to practice those 3 disciplines. And then on the 11th, you're going to turn in that paper saying, this is what happened with my practicing. With the Bible study, you're going to turn in the content of the Bible study, and I might make some tweaks or ideas or suggestions on that. But then you need to find some time between the 9th and the 15th, really, to sit down with a middle school or high school student who is not related to you. Sorry, you can't use your younger siblings, and I know several of you have those, even in the high school. So you have to use somebody else's sibling. But with a high school or college or high school or middle school student, go over one of those Bible studies with them, and then turn that in on the 16th. And then that same day we'll have our culminating paper, but I'll talk about that later. So hopefully that made sense. I'm going to attach all of these to the email that this video is coming in. And so I hope this makes more sense, but I should be back on Friday. Please feel free to text or email me for a clarification, and I'd be glad to do that as well.